I think I got a couple of quick questions.
Fire away.
Okay. Is there some way in WordPress to track the pages that have been edited? And if so, by what ID and when they were modified? I guess we have a website that a number of us edit, and I'd love to be able to keep track of who's made changes to what pages, when, and by what ID.
Anyone like to pick that up? I have an answer. It's something I recently looked up, but if anyone else has a thought and would like to go first. Alrighty. I think that falls into the category broadly of auditing and monitoring plugins. And I've looked at several that, if anything, the issue is turning off a number of the items that are tracked, because the plugins, by their nature tend to, of this type at least, tend to cover everything under the sun and therefore build up quite large logs.
Okay.
And so the key is to choose one that lets you focus on what's relevant to you. I can't pull up immediately the one that, I think there's two that I'm looking at. One in particular looks good. And as I recall, it was audit something. Audit was in the plugin name. But if you simply go and search on the word audit and then look for the other tags that come up on whatever it hits on, so that you make sure that you're not missing a very similar category, because the plugin repo is rather pretty designed in that people just throw in tags left, right, and center. So the same category can be found under 4 or 5 different versions of the word. And also, just to put the nail in the coffin, if you put the name of a specific plugin in quotes, and there is that plugin there by that exact name, it won't necessarily find it first, or even in the first 5 to 10, which baffles me to no end. But in any event, that's one of my own personal rants. Here we have a suggestion of a plugin called Simple History, and that may be what you're looking for if it's limited to just the things that you're interested in.
That sounds good. Interestingly, in the local app, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but for development on your own machine, it has an add-on called Instant Reload. And I only mention that because it has a built-in auditing function, or at least reporting function, of changes that are being made to the site live. And I guess that's because it has to track them to know when to reload the page in the browser for something that is noteworthy enough to display, I guess. But if you happen to be using local, that's a kind of a free built-in feature. If that's add-on is turned on, it's free and it installs automatically if you just flip the switch on it. Okay, I'll take a look at that as well. And the other thing was, it was a quickie on, and I think it's the same answer, it'll be about plugin on how to download users' IDs and names, the whole list of users that we have on our system, down to say an Excel or CSV file or whatever.
I've never had that requirement come up. Anybody come across that specifically? How to download a list of users with, I guess, a selection of the relevant fields that apply to that user, at least name and ID.
Prajin again.
Yeah, boy, we've got a guy on the ball.
Yeah,
so
that's a good suggestion.
With that plugin, you can download all the metadata and move it into a CSV. So that might be useful.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Yes,
Excellent.
exactly what I'm looking for.
Collect these myself, since they're always handy to have.
Yeah. Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I think we've sort of nailed that one. If I
that's
say so myself.
All my questions for the night answered.
The price for this, we don't have a tip jar, but we do ask you put a sentence or two as a comment in the event page on Meetup, just to say, I went first, and within 5 minutes, I was good to go.
Shall do. Where do you want that?
On the
Meetup page.
Oh,
for
the
this
Meetup page?
session,
Certainly.
down at the bottom, you can post comments.
Yeah.
And so that's a good place just to drop a line in that the things transpired
Sure.
well.
I
Let
can
me
do that.
grab
Thank you.
these.
And thank you, Prajin, again.
Yeah. Hang on.
Hit these links so I can
Go back to my
do not lose
notes.
them.
Here we are. Simple history is one. And what was the other one? Oh yeah, import and export customers and users. Cool.
Yeah, things I want to try.
All right. Is that it for you, Kevin?
That's it for me.
Okay.
I'm great.
Next up, who'd like to ask their question or raise an issue?
Hey, everybody.
Jane, not Jane. It's that Sandy.
Sandy, yes, hi.
Why did I think
Um,
Jane? Anyway, good
There's
evening,
a
Sandy.
Jane just in the grid. That's probably where.
Yeah, Jane was
Um,
waving too, but she's on mute.
Aha.
All right. I have got a site with a form on it that I am using Forminator. And it's the most recent version of WordPress. It's the most recent version of the plugin. And it was working, then it just stopped. And it stopped around the time that the plugin was updated. So what happens now is the form is the information collected by the form is there on the site, and users get, or not users, but people who are getting the information from the form get an email from Forminator, but it's just the subject line. There's the information is there, the form is collecting the information, but it's not arriving by email. I have no idea what's going on.
Did it work at least at the start, or this has been the behavior, abbreviated behavior all the time?
No, it was working. It was working.
I
They
think though,
just-
Sandy,
and you know, and the plugin got updated, and around that time it stopped working, and I thought, oh, I have to update my plugin. That's gonna fix it. So I did, and it made no difference. And
sorry, so it was you say around the time of the update, so you don't know whether it was before or after. the update.
after, yeah, you know, because
Have you tried rolling back to the previous version of the plugin? I mean, that's a pretty trivial sort of step, right? I mean, it's just reinstalling, but it's going backwards rather than forwards.
Yeah, I could try that, but it was like what I had the older version, the one that was working and stopped working. So I updated the plugin and it didn't help. So I don't know how far back I want.
Have you read the release notes for both the new and for both the current and previous versions? I mean, there might be something in the update that says, as Woocommerce has said, for example, in one of their last updates, we're changing the database this time. You got to do these things to be in preparation for the update. You know, beware.
Yeah,
The other thing,
Morning.
the other thing I might suggest is, have you checked the email settings in the new form setup? We use
Yeah.
Gravity Forms, and I know there's specific settings for email, and perhaps, as Robin said, something has changed with the format.
There might also be the way the forms work, there are fields which have sort of replacement values. And on the form, you can check that quickly, just eyeballing it. Is it missing the body content field that gets
form's
replaced?
right there, and the data's being inserted. Like I can get all the information, it's just not coming by email.
Right, but that's what the one part of the form process. is the template for the email sent, in which the address, date, content to go into the email is set out in the template, right? Just like it was on a regular page and you were spinning up blog posts. That in Forms, I'm not familiar with that particular plugin, but generally in Forms, that's an easy thing to find and inspect and just confirm that it has the body content you're looking for and it hasn't somehow disappeared. And then the last thing one might look at is to find where in the database this is stored and just confirm that the data is making it in to the database using
Data's getting into the database. It's
I'm
just
sorry?
not getting into, it's the data's getting into the database. It's just not getting into the emails.
Wow.
Just really quickly interjecting. So are any other emails getting sent, or is it specifically one form?
You know, I was using WP Forms and I switched over to Forminator because it's easier for blind users, and that's the majority of the users on this site. Because WP Forms doesn't use field sets, right? You know, so and the once you end up like with groups with radio buttons, or you know, it's not programmatically associated. The label and the radio buttons are checkboxes. So I changed to Forminator. It's the only form on the site that uses Forminator. And people, the users were really happy at first. Oh my God, we can understand what's going on. It's weird because they don't actually use proper HTML for it. They're using ARIA to make the associations, but
so I'm quite sorry, yeah, I have a feeling it might be an email like the SMTP, because the data is being captured. It's the actual sending of the data to your mail. So that's the email SMTP server that might not be set up correctly.
But if the email is going out to the addressees and it's just missing a component of the email, is that really the business of the SMTP process?
No.
Because I thought that was essentially getting the email out of the system and on its way,
That's correct.
but treating it as a packet, like not caring what was in it.
Exactly right. So it's probably just a mail too. So it's getting sent to your users, but it's not getting sent to you. So in that case, it's probably just a missing tag sending the email
it may
back
be
to you.
the smart thing to do is just build the email form afresh. Take a blank one or take whatever the template is and create it from scratch, which shouldn't be, more than a 10 or 15 minute job.
It'll be bigger than that.
Just
it's
because
such a fussy, long.
Just because
form.
when
But
you're
I
looking
could
at a
do
form like
one
that,
like
it's
an
very
easy one
easy.
just to see if it's going to work.
Let me finish though. When you're working with a form like this, in my experience, it's really hard to spot like a period being before or after a square bracket, and it being before rather than after may cause the form to fail.
Robin, this is a drag and drop form. Like it's not.
That's why rebuilding it is a quick and easy way to test that you haven't discovered a simple error.
But
there's no answer that somebody looking in as we are can give you beyond what are standard procedures for debugging things of this nature. I mean, we're not going to give you the answer because we have no idea what you've done or what state that is in. So if we've given you 3 or 4 steps that collectively might take 20 minutes, that sounds pretty good to me.
Sandy, I did look up this problem, and there was somebody else about 1.5 years ago who had the same issue. And what they discovered with that person was that in their email template, they didn't have there were no form fields in the email template. So you might want to have a look at in the Forminator in your email template and just make sure that all the correct form fields are there.
Drew, that was what I was suggesting by saying, get the template and build a fresh form because
Well, no,
there are
you don't
probably
need to
not more
build
than 5 or 6 fields, drag and drop. It shouldn't take more than 5 or 10 minutes to create a new one from scratch and obviate the difficulty of spotting a subtle error.
Yeah, you don't need to create a new form. You just need to check the email template for the emails that are going out on that form.
But that's what I'm referring to. The
Well,
email
you
form.
said
it's-
build a new form. You don't build
yeah,
a new form.
which I'm referring to the email itself, that template.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the email that the person who works at the agency gets when somebody fills in the form, right? They submit the form and it goes to someone who works at the agency. I just posted a link to the form in the chat.
Is the page width this as wide as it looks to me for an accessibility reason? Like in my case here, it's about 1200 pixels wide. I just happened to open it in the foremost window, just happened to be a really wide one. Normally I'm more like 900.
Yeah, it's pretty wide, eh? Anyway.
I just wondered if that was, there was a reason for it that I would learn something from, but in any event, if a person has 500 characters in their name, it'll definitely fit. Anyway, if this form relates to the email in terms of the fields that the email provides, then I think you've got your answer.
I'm not seeing it, Robin, I'm sorry.
Rebuild the specific form that the email in question uses, because if it is a drag and drop to a template, my view is that's the quickest way to check for errors, subtle errors that somehow crept into the form either before or after the last update. Like a period, a bracket, a digit that's wrong can cause somehow cause a whole form to fail. Form in the sense of, I'm only talking about the email vehicle itself, which is a template with fields, right?
Also, if you
wait a second, sorry, Drew. Just Sandy, have you ever created an email?
I've coded email forms, like mailed forms from scratch, right? And I find that easier to do an accessible form where you can write all the relationships. The drag and drops, they look nice, but they don't.
Okay, so in other words, it's a complex task to rebuild this email component. Is that what you're saying?
Pardon?
Is it a complex task then to build
a
fresh version?
Yeah, well, I'll try that. I'll try doing a new version. I did a version using WP Forms, and
maybe you can just build a super simplified version.
Properly.
Build a super simplified version just to test the mechanism.
Yeah.
And if it works in its ultra simplified form, then work up from there by adding more fields.
Yeah, add a field at a time and just figure.
Or not even a field, but I mean, just if the absolute minimum number of fields, name and address, and maybe one content field, if that works and goes out, then I would add the rest of the fields and try that in one step.
Yeah.
The other thing is that if another point that came up was a quick look at the release notes to see if there's anything about your problem mentioned in it. Would be something that I would look to doing for my peace of mind, that I'm not spending time doing something which is clearly spelled out with a solution that I just didn't bother looking at.
Another thing is that if you have an active WPMU dev membership, their support is quite good. And they should be able to figure this out for you.
Yeah. It just seems a bit much to get a membership for the one form. It's like I'd almost rather just move to, Gravity Forms or something, just they offer, they say, oh, you know, you get 1 week free consultation, right? On their site, but then it's like you click that and it just goes to here's where you pay. It was so, there was such a sleazy quality to how that information was organized. Man, I don't want to sign up with them.
Yeah, it's only worthwhile if you're using all of their plugins.
Yeah.
Are
And
you a member, Drew, by chance?
I used to be.
Okay. Didn't they have I vaguely recall a couple of years ago, they went through some sort of internal shift in the way they were doing their plugin packages and so on.
Yeah, they vastly reduced their number of plugins. They used to have over 100 of them, and now they're down to about 10 or 12.
Yeah. Oh, and I recall they always had great graphics on their pages. They're very pretty. Okay.
all right, that's enough of me. Bye, everybody. Well, I'm here, but
Okay. Who's next? There was a question in the chat about WooCommerce. Let me just find it. For those who have used WooCommerce, is it good and user-friendly? Any things to be aware of? And I think we have some people here who have been WooCommerce users and fans.
Yeah.
I guess the question is, good for what?
Exactly.
Mhm. I mean,
Go ahead.
Yeah, to give just a quick context, yeah, it's great for e-commerce shops. So whether you want to manage your orders, your customers, and your products, it offers a pretty good solution. Yes, I think you do need to be a little bit technical to leverage all of the functionalities. Generally, people who are not strong in terms of their development do prefer Shopify. It has a more streamlined solution for junior or people who don't have a developer background, but the flexibility WooCommerce provides is amazing. So you can really use it for selling books and training material. Yep. I mean, you can definitely do that as well. But it also depends on selling books and training material. Are they your own books and training material, or is it going to be like an Amazon? It's your own one? Yeah, I mean, if you don't have more than 3 or 4 books, so generally speaking, if you're an author, you're not going to have you won't need a huge shop. Then you just need a payment gateway for a product.
So is it fair to say that for relatively simple requirements,
yeah,
there still is a benefit to the flexibility that WooCommerce has?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're at the other end of the spectrum with relatively complex requirements, then the fact that there are an incredible number of add-ons
yeah,
for WooCommerce, it's hard to, I'm not sure, does any other plugin out there have as many add-ons as WooCommerce?
Not for WordPress, nope.
Well, not for, well, yeah, for any other platform, we don't know. But yes, I think, so part of the benefit of that, of course, is a lot of choice. But the other side of the coin is a bit of complexity arises, obviously. Number one. Number two, lots of them require payment. So the base level, the free tier, so to speak, in my limited experience, does a pretty good job. But then there's a point at which you shift into being, more serious in e-commerce terms, and therefore you're making money, so you're going to have to spend some money. And it's just like, if you want more performance, you need to pay more for hosting as a one step of a number. So, and I think that the knock on Shopify, like whether it's Wix or Squarespace or Shopify, is that for the ease of entry into your first level of use or your first site, the price is they have a way of doing things that you should either fall in love with, or, it'll be like, being married to someone that you develop the opposite of love for, and there's nowhere to go. And so you're stuck there for a serious length of time. I think Shopify compared to WooCommerce is
I mean, Shopify's big and certainly one of our Canadian unicorns, I guess, is fair to say. But in terms of the size of the number of sites and the amount of business done, I think WooCommerce is probably what, 100 times as big as Shopify. And then again, Shopify is moving in the direction of incorporating more and more services so that you are more and more paying them the money rather than anybody else to support that platform. So it's, in a sense, increasing the height of the walls surrounding the walled garden that it consists of. Anyone else have a thought to contribute in terms of WooCommerce, Shopify, et cetera?
A thought and a question.
Sure.
Yeah, I have no developer background at all, but I've been using WooCommerce pretty successfully for about 6 years, until last week or last month. And so no, it's great. And I have both virtual and tangible products in it. And I've got it connected to PayPal, which is the one that allows payment by credit card as well. And the Canada Post plugin. So that all gets thoroughly calculated and it does a really good job that way. However, at the moment, I'm all upgraded and everything, but for some reason, everything's working fine if it's something that I have to mail or somebody has to pick up. It's the virtual products that are not connecting through. So I just wondered if anybody
these are
else.
ones that are downloaded, you mean? When
Yeah,
you say virtual, that means a downloaded product, right?
it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
So at the moment, it's recording into my dashboard in WooCommerce. I can see everything there. And it looks like it's taking the payment information on the front end, but that's not getting to PayPal at this stage. So I've spent hours chatting and on the phone and so on with PayPal and with WooCommerce, and some talking to the hookup with WooCommerce. This particular one, with PayPal, is supported by a company in Germany, which does make it awkward for support. Just time-wise, they just operate on German time. Which doesn't align very well with Toronto time. I just wondered if anybody else had that problem in the last month or so.
Yeah, I think WooCommerce has, do they not have their own PayPal extension?
They do.
It is, does WooCommerce?
Yeah, does WooCommerce not have their own PayPal
Yeah, and that's what
extension?
I'm using. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it's not supported directly by WooCommerce?
No, it's a guest one or whatever. So it's this company inside, which has several extra consonants in it in Germany. Anyway, so nobody else has seen this happen.
And it's only with
Mentioned before
virtual
about
products.
the WooCommerce update. Did you go
That's
through
right, what was
whatever
that?
process that involved? It was like a month ago.
Yeah. Well, what about it?
Well,
Sorry.
you were aware of it and did whatever it requested of you to update successfully.
Yeah, and I've walked through a ton of that stuff with support at WooCommerce as well. So I don't think anything got missed there.
And Jane, you're saying that it's only with physical product. Sorry, it's only with
Virtual.
downloadable products. Physical
That's right.
products are fine.
Yeah, yeah. So it's almost as though the Canada Post calculator thing is hooking in there somehow, or not. All right. Okay. Well, if nobody else is having the problem, and is anybody else using WooCommerce with both tangible and virtual? And sort of similar payment systems and so on?
Not me.
Jane, did this problem just start recently?
Yeah, in November. I'm not sure exactly when. Unfortunately, it notifies me when there's a successful order, but when the order doesn't go through that, I don't get an email.
Hmm.
So it took one customer trying 10 times before he emailed me and said it wasn't working.
Would you consider switching to the non-WooCommerce way to hook up to PayPal? Or at least not their particular arrangement with PayPal? To see if that would work.
This is just PayPal standard. that I
Right, but
need.
isn't there a WooCommerce version of that? I thought that's what you said or someone said. And so
WooCommerce says WooCommerce payments. I'm not using that.
right, okay.
Yeah, because I don't need the Apple Pay and Google Pay and all that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry we can't be of more help, and I guess it's, if you haven't had this exact problem, the fact that you've already spent time with the support people,
Yeah.
I would think that they would have more insight than we can offer, unless, as you say, someone happens to have had that particular same experience and resolved it successfully.
Yeah, okay. All right. But other than that, I would recommend WooCommerce.
Yeah.
That aside,
Yeah.
in other words.
Yeah.
It's Kathy. Thank you so much for everybody's input. I asked that question because I'm thinking about downloading and start using WooCommerce because I've heard so much about it. But now I'm not so sure. Now I have another question. If I don't use WooCommerce, if I sell something, mainly I would think, online kind of selling books and such. So can I just do it direct with PayPal? Would that be so? Or do I need before PayPal? All the connections, like kind of a tricky. If they work, it's great. Otherwise, glitches and stuff. So if somebody has some advice.
Are your products downloadable, or are they something you have to send out?
That's a great question. Would be both. So I guess I would have to use Canada Post or something like that. I don't know.
I would certainly recommend going through something that has some sort of a plugin, so that does the calculation for you. Otherwise, you're just guessing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
no,
it's through WooCommerce as an extension for Canada Post, and that
Yes,
you actually pay for that.
Jane, I think you said already that apart from your particular problem of late, that you're generally happy with the WooCommerce setup, and that
Absolutely.
you don't consider yourself sort of a technically proficient person. So that's a worthwhile recommendation for someone who's just starting off with WooCommerce.
Yeah.
So I think that's a positive thing, notwithstanding that particular problem you're going through.
Yeah, but
Absolutely.
but the support is one good point. For a starter, you would need support, and then time zone differences and stuff, language maybe as well could be something to consider anyways. Yeah.
Okay. Let me just see if there's a comment here. Sasha, did you want to speak to the point that you made in the chat?
Yeah, sure. I wanted to connect Stripe to my website, and it just seemed like I had to pay $300 for the jetpack, but I don't know. Okay.
Do not pay $300.
I
for
know it
jetpack.
seemed like a lot, but they were just saying there was like a security thing. So when I would click on the plugin or the little thing, I'm using Blocksy. So when I would click on the widget, I guess it's called, it just seemed like if I wanted to set it up, it was saying 300. So then I just kind of, right now I have it so that it just goes to Stripe. Yeah, but that was just, I uploaded it and then I just deleted it all from my site because it was a little complicated.
Right. Anybody has experience with both the Stripe and the PayPal? Because some people switch to Stripe or Stripe. I wonder why.
I used both. There's, I think it's a preference. People are moving towards Stripe, and it's also a percentage. So Stripe, for every transaction, there's a percentage that is taken, and Stripe basically takes, I think, a 2-point-something% of your each transaction. I see Stripe is incredibly popular at the moment, Stripe and authorized.net, and people are slowly moving away from PayPal. That's just my observation. But they all have a percentage. So like generally people choose based on the percentage per transaction.
Yeah, PayPal has service charge as well. So I'm just wondering the differences and why Stripes are getting popular. Yeah.
I just found the interface is more beautiful. So when it goes to the when it goes just to Stripe, then I just think it looks better like connected to my website. So
Right.
But I don't know if that's would be everybody's experience, but that was my experience. The interface is just it's better.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
As we stayed with PayPal just because of comfort level for customers. I don't know whether that's really valid, but people were familiar with it.
Yeah, no, I think that's important. Yeah, I've been with PayPal for, and that's the only one that I've been using anyway. So I have no experience with Stripe. Yeah, but that's good to know about Stripe as well. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Does Stripe have a way of contacting them without email now?
I'm sorry, can you say that again, please?
Does Stripe have a way that customers can contact them that's not email only now?
Good question.
Because that was one of my big issues with Stripe, is because I did a lot of in-person presentations where people would sign up for my service. And I said to them, well, what happens if somebody's card doesn't go through and I need to contact you to find out what's going on? And they said, oh, well, you can send an email and we'll get back to you in 24 to 48 hours. I said, I don't think the customer is going to sit with me for 24 to 48 hours and wait. Which is why I deal with PayPal for the same reason, because you can actually get a hold of them if you have to. So if that's of concern to you, may not be, but it depends on what you're doing, right?
Yeah, that's important. Yeah, the support there.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Who's next? Would someone? Sasha, you're up.
Thank you. So my question is about SEO stuff. So my website was hacked. And so if you Google my name, it had all this Japanese. And I originally signed up for that because of that. But then it's good. My host shut my website down and I actually recreated it. So it's working really well. I think the security is good on it. The only thing is that like if I go to Google search tools, like there's still a lot of like, let's see, if I go to overview, there's still a lot of index pages that are being indexed under sashapierce.ca. I do notice that it's going down, but I don't know if it takes a while for like the Google Search Console to get rid of it, or if there's anything I can do about that. And same with Bing as well. I have Bing Master Tools, and yeah, it still feels like there's a lot of indexed and included things leading to my website. So I don't know if anyone has any information about that.
So So there are two things generally with SEO. One is your sitemap.xml. Basically, that's what tells Google what pages exist, and your robot.txt. And that tells Google what it should look for. So you can tell them, hey, look at these pages or don't look at those pages.
Okay, and where do you put the that robot?
The robot.txt.
Yeah,
So
I've never done that before.
So there are plugins which can help you do that as well. Generally, there's actually a file where you can code, or you could use a plugin to kind of fix that. Once you do that, you go onto your Google search console and request them to recrawl your site. And within 48 to 72 hours, they will go over it, and then that data should be consistent in a week or so. Yeah.
So what is it? Robot.txt?
Robot.txt.
Okay.
It's a file called robot that's a text file.
Okay, I feel like I've seen that somewhere. I'm so new. Like I created my website, but I'm such a beginner with these things.
Right. I've added a link to the chat, which is a starting point in regard to reindexing a site.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Which has already come up, but in any event. And then if you simply Google sitemap, it'll point you to several different easy ways to check that you're generating a sitemap, and just inform you as to the purpose of it, because it's a handy thing to know. The robots file has been, anyway, you don't care about the sort of background to it.
Okay, that's amazing. Thank you. And then I had one more question about, I guess it was a little bit WooCommerce. Like, has anyone used WP Simple Forms for putting the payment on their website? Or if I should try WooCommerce again and try to figure out why it said that I was doing I had to do jetpack. I had to buy jetpack. I think it's like simple. The plugin is.
I mean, what is the simplest level to an e-commerce component to a site? With the least sort of mental and code overhead. Anyone have any thoughts, or have you Googled that? Simplest e-commerce for WordPress.
Yeah, right now I just have it going to Stripe, and it does look good. So it's not terrible that it's not going through.
Right.
My site also, everything is sliding scale. So in a way, just a simple donation form works really well for my business.
Right.
But yeah, maybe I'll keep investigating that. And now that I know that I don't need to pay for all that security. And then I guess just one more question about security. Like, I don't want to be hacked again. And I know I was using like an old theme, so I think that was the problem. But is there any other suggestions on?
The most basic suggestion for security,
yeah,
is just making sure that both WordPress itself and your plugins are up to date.
Okay.
And I personally don't like the auto updating feature, except for sort of limited cases. I'd like to know before an update occurs, so that if something doesn't work, I know right away, check this first. But that point aside, probably that's your first sort of baseline rule, is to be up to date and protect the login in the usual way from being hacked. That is to say, just not provide anyone with access to your account. And there are ways to make the WP login itself harder to reach, or at least to hide it literally. Which if you're nervous, are relatively easy sort of things to do that you'll understand what's going on. Like, it'll say, change the name of this folder, and then put the new name here. And then that way someone doesn't know where the key things they want to hack into are located.
Right. Okay.
But I'm sure others here tonight will have more
Yeah,
suggestions.
and I am
than
using
do.
WordFence. That was the first thing I put on my
Sure.
website. So
Sure, which is good.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for answering all my questions.
Just before you go, anybody else have suggestions in terms of security? I mean, WordFence is a good starting point. The secure, what's it called? Secure something or other.
Sucuri. What's that?
Well, the competitive product of WordFence.
Sucuri is one of them.
Yeah, and actually that's a little more popular, I think, than WordFence.
Yeah, I've actually found the paid version of Sucuri is quite good.
Right.
I've had no luck with the free versions of any of the security products.
Okay.
One of the cautions that I've found very helpful is to make sure that my sign-in name is not admin, but is some unique characters, and also use a separate login address so that the people don't go to WP admin, they go to a special login. And I think WordFence and Insecure or iTheme Security support that option.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Actually, that's Jack's comment in regard to not having your administrative username admin or some variation of it is probably the easiest thing one can do. Yeah. And therefore, it's a good thing to do just automatically when you take responsibility or create a site.
Is that in my hosting or is it in WordPress that I changed?
It's in WordPress itself.
Yeah.
It's WordPress. Okay.
So just go and create a new user with administrative level privileges or permissions. And I use the same sort of made up word that's easy to remember and that no one would ever guess.
Great.
And I don't tell anyone and I don't document it anywhere. And so to me, that's security, right? And
then you delete the first admin.
Well, delete that user, right?
Yeah, that user. Okay.
And therefore
great.
there's no admin, or you provide an impossible password, like 50 characters randomly generated. Will take most machines a couple of centuries to sort of hack through. Actually, they call things like that honey traps, I think, where you almost literally invite a hacker in to waste time and CPU cycles in a hopeless effort to break into a site.
Nice. Awesome.
But both iThemes and WordFence also check for continual usage of our password tries, login tries. And you can just, they have simple mechanisms to, if it's more than 3 or 4, cut them off or bump them out, because that's not a, if they make 4 attempts or 5 attempts and they're all wrong, then, don't let them in.
I would think personally, 3 attempts is plenty. In other words, on the 3rd attempt, you're locked out.
Yeah, I agree.
One thing that I also did in my HT access, I just put certain IPs, but the only problem is that I didn't realize that the IP often changes. So that only those people can only that IP can actually edit. But I don't know how, I don't know how.
There is a mechanism specifically for IP addresses that change or are dynamic. I'm trying to remember what it is, DNS something or other, that essentially how it works is when you get a new IP address, it sends it to this service, and this service then will update some other places so that the current version of your change, every time you reboot your machine or reboot your router, probably more likely, when you reboot your router, then you'll get a new IP address. And therefore, any place you've used it, you have to go and update. Well, these services do that updating for you.
Okay.
And the last time I looked, which is a long time ago, they were, at least the one that in particular that I used was free. Anybody have any experience with that in terms of updating IP addresses when they arise from things like a rebooted router or no? Okay, but if that's what you want to do, I would Google for service to update dynamic or changed IP addresses. And it should direct you there because that's a business that used to be very popular, but now seems less necessary.
Mhm. Okay, great, thank you.
20 years ago, I used to use a service called Dyn DNS that did
I think that's the
something
one
like
I'm thinking of. That's a long time ago. Okay. So Sasha, you're okay now? Good.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate all your help.
Don't forget though that we ask for the put in a sentence or two
I will.
in the comment to the
Good.
page. That it really it's as much to encourage people to sort of to come and sort of, hey, you know, I need help. Can someone help me? And overcome that hesitancy that we all have in that regard.
Okay, sounds good. I will definitely do that.
Okay, who would like to be next?
Yeah, I could go next here. I have a crazy situation, so maybe you guys can help me out here. I have a website that's older and I was planning to redo it in about 6 months from now. However, it crashed the other day and I can't log into it at all. So one of the developers I talked to said, well, what you should do is take File Manager and try to import your site over. But then what do because they think it's a plugin that's crashed somewhere. But how if I take File Manager, then I import it through something like FileZilla, is that right? And then what do you do? How do you debug it?
So let's go through this methodically, since this is sort of the troubleshooting procedure in a circumstance like this is pretty straightforward. Go ahead. How do I pronounce your name? Prajin?
Yeah. No, I don't want to interrupt. Sorry, after you.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Well, if you can't log in to WP-admin, the best route is actually accessing PHP. So you access your database, you can directly insert a user into your database.
Okay.
Like so
So what you're talking about is going to the host level of your site.
Right. Go to my hosting company.
Where you can access the database from the hosting level. Right, because the database technically is not actually part of the site. It's something that works with the site, but isn't actually in the site.
Right, okay, right.
And so at the hosting level, they'll invariably offer a tool to look into the database or to make changes to the database. Personally, that wouldn't be my first step. My first step would be a simpler one.
Okay.
At the host level again, they'll have or let's put it this way, if you've already used FileZilla to access your site.
Well, I'm just saying that was one of the options I heard about.
Okay, have you used FileZilla before?
No, I have never used it.
That's an app which you can use from your own machine,
right.
But at the host, in your hosting account, there'll be the equivalent of FileZilla.
Okay.
Which is going to say something like FTP.
Right.
Which is the protocol that's used to get into the site.
Right.
Anyway, the technique is simple enough. You just rename the plugins folder to plugins X or 0 or 1 or any name, which will prevent WordPress from loading plugins.
Okay.
And then when you try to reach the site, it'll be reaching a site for a version of your site without any plugins running.
Right.
If the plugins are the cause of the problem because you do now reach your dashboard,
right,
then the process is finding the errant plugin or plugins.
Right, okay.
And so the technique, there is a plugin specifically that does what I'm going to refer you to, but you can do it yourself directly, is you go in groups of plugins And you can start in small numbers, like take the first 5 plugins in the list and add them back in. Does the site display?
Right.
And if that works, then add another 5 and another 5. So what you're doing is you're reducing by a factor of 5 the number of trials you have to go through to find some plugin that's causing the site to fail.
Gotcha.
You
Okay.
could add half of them back in one shot, and it's either yes, it's in the first half, or no, it must be in the second half. Just
Right.
depends on how bold you feel at the time. Once you've isolated the plugins in question, right?
Right.
Then you go through another kind of drill of what am I going to do with this plugin? Can I replace it? Can I update it? Can I check for support tickets, or rather, the support form or whatever for it, and see if anybody else has the problem. Now, are you getting when certain sorts of complete failures of a site occur, WordPress core generates an email and sends it to you with a sort of a magical link, which says, for a brief period of time, I think it's 24 hours, maybe it's less, it'll enable you to get back into your site. And if you do get that email, what do they call it? A technical something or other, a technical issue has occurred or whatever. I forget exactly.
No.
You get the email or you don't.
Yeah, I didn't get it, no.
Okay, if you don't get it, then that's something you might just put on your list to find out.
Okay.
To make sure your email address is working and the site can communicate with you would be a good idea, but not to solve this problem.
I can't, no, it wouldn't be. Okay.
Let me think now. There is a relatively straightforward procedure to turn on what's referred to as debugging mode, in which whatever's going on in the site, a verbose, meaning a lot of detail and data is thrown off by the site as it tries to function, and sending a technically proficient person in the a developer or whatever, that particular information will enable them to zero right in. The debugging information often appears at the top of a page when it's displayed for your site, and it will identify exactly the lines of code that are not working properly.
Gotcha.
Then you have to figure out, well, what does that belong to? Usually you get that in the debugging notification bar that appears at the top of the page, and you could follow that. But the site has to be working to some extent in order for the debugging process to run.
Right, exactly.
So you've got to kind of rise up a series of steps to get to the real problem.
Okay.
And then once that, if you can get a debugging report, then that should have enough information to solve the problem. It may not be a problem that you know how to solve, like, this line of code is not finding variable XYZ.
Right.
Well, good luck.
Exactly.
Other people will know this better than we do, at least you and I do. Okay, guys, pile in. There's all kinds of other good tips on working through these things, because it's an art, not a science, figuring these things out.
Right.
I had one other suggestion. Often hosts provide a way to go back to a previous version
of your site.
Right. So if you just find a previous version about the last time it was working correctly, you can just, and it's literally a click, and the host generally does it for you. It takes about 45 minutes to get the latest, the old version back up. That might be the easiest approach. It just reverts back to the old site, but it depends on the host you're using.
Well, when you say depends, because some hosts, depending on the plan you've got, you may be getting hourly, daily, weekly, or monthly backups running automatically. And the backups may last a day, a week, a month, a year, again, depending on your host. Right. So what you would like is fairly frequent backups that last a reasonable period of time. Okay. But you would have a choice normally how far back you want to go. And then you just pick off a list, the date that you think you'd be good. It doesn't actually solve the problem because you don't know what happened, but you have a functioning site.
Right.
And can then do a a manual backup and be able to sort of take the site apart if you wish, or move it somewhere else, or install it locally to play with or whatever,
Right,
which you have to have a functioning site in order to be able to do.
right.
That was a good suggestion. I mean, that's the sort of the most obvious thing is recover the site from a backup and keep motoring.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's an idea. Yeah,
Yep.
thank you.
Especially if it's a site that you're intending to overhaul or redesign or whatever.
Yeah,
You might just want to become learn a little bit about the migration process and the fact that the different components of a site can be individually sort of turned on and off in creating a backup or a migration of the site, which means simply that if you're redesigning the site, it's the content you care about
right.
more than anything else. And so therefore that might be something that you want to be backed up on with especially good care, so that you can say, hey, you know, no matter what happens, I've got the content of the site to be reloaded into a new site.
Right, yes.
And leave your problems behind, so to speak. Just
Yeah.
shoot the dog. All its legs are broken. Or whatever.
Oh dear, okay. Thank you, because I just didn't quite know where you could go to get started, how you got that process starting even, yeah.
Well, actually, I mean, the critical sort of word is either troubleshooting or diagnostics. Those are the two words that sort of take you to the articles that go through a step-by-step process for recovering a site. And given the number of WordPress sites in the world, there are thousands of these articles out there. So the trick is pick reputable authors or publishers, so to speak. So, you know, there's a half a dozen sites out there where they do a very good job with assistance, you know, in the form of guides or tutorials or what have you. And everybody has their favorites, but I quite like a site called Kinsta, K-I-N, how do you spell it? K-I-N-S-T-A. Anyway, they're a hosting site, and often good material comes from the hosts. So it's not, there's nothing in their material that like favors them as a host, but it simply is good, well-organized, thought out, nicely presented material. WP Beginner is another one, and anybody, guys, just come up, you know, make your recommendations or suggestions. I know Drew and Jack, I'm sure you've got preferences in this regard.
Yeah, WP Beginner, I certainly endorse them. They're a good resource for WordPress information.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Who is going to be next? Jane suggested creating a staging site. I guess that's in regard to this last point about migrating a site. Jane, is that what you were thinking, that Sandra should consider using a staging site?
Yeah, it is. And certainly through, is everybody using cPanel? Mostly through? Yeah, you do it right through there, right? Yeah.
About 2/3 of hosting, I think, goes on under cPanel.
Yeah, but I'm sure your host could create a staging site, and that way, and it's just a duplicate, right? That is, you can set it so that Google's not searching it, and you can do whatever you want on it. So you could take off plugins if you think that's the thing, or old themes or whatever, and work sort of in the background.
Okay,
And when you've got it all done and ready, just get your host to switch it, or depending on what you've got in the background, you can do the switch. It's just a staging site. It's behind the scenes.
yes, yeah.
Are you familiar with the term?
Staging site, yes, but my backend has one of those.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I have
The
a
one
front
thing
end
you
and a
might
back
consider
end
is
site,
that the less that the staging feature costs, or the lower the cost of your hosting, the less control you have over what is staged. And generally, the very inexpensive ones, it's all or nothing. You want to move from the staging site to the real site, then it's like an all or nothing proposition.
WP Reset is one of those tools that you simply don't realize you need until you see it in action, and then you.
That was somebody's video.
Yeah, I'm looking up a video
Oh.
on restoring a website.
Right.
Thank you.
So I'm going to turn off my mute my phone.
Right. So staging offers some benefits. But I think in your circumstances of planning to leave the site altogether, if the all or nothing aspect is okay, that is to say, if you find problems and fix them in the staging site and just want to replace the main site with it, then that's pretty straightforward. I mean, well, it couldn't be more straightforward. It's just like exporting and importing, and you're good to go. All right. Jack, did you find something of value? Jack, you there? I guess not. And someone's put a reference into phpmyadmin, which is a tool that enables you to look into the database.
Right.
And see what's going on. So.
Thank you, Prajin.
All right. How are we doing time-wise? We're okay. All right. Who's next? Mayura, are you there? You came into the session after we started, but if you have a question, now would be a good time to ask it.
Yeah, Ben, thanks for inviting me. I'm very new to this meeting. I just wanted to see, I'm starting with WordPress and I wanted to see what are the topics we are discussing here. I'm just creating a website for one of my friends. And I had big header images. When I open the website, the image doesn't load smoothly, like it takes time. So I just need help. How can I make it come up on the screen faster and smoother?
All right, that's a question open for suggestions. Anyone?
Well, my first guess is that the image might be very large.
Yeah. Could you send us the URL so we can have a look?
Sure.
That's a good idea.
Put it into the chat.
Or the page, and you can pull the image from the page unless it's behind an overlay or something.
I didn't publish it, but if you want, I can share my screen. If you want to have a look.
Well, if it's not published yet, it's limited use because we can't actually look at the code behind your site. It's, just with a screen share.
Okay. Is it possible I can share my screen?
I'm sorry, I said that again.
Can I share my screen?
Right, but I think what Drew is, so this is a private site at this point in time.
Okay.
I'm asking a question. I don't know. Is this site? Can we see the site in the normal way using a browser?
No, I think she said it wasn't published.
Okay, so that's the point that Drew was making. Okay, so yes, share your screen and we'll do what we can starting there.
Just one second.
Do you have to make her a host?
No.
Okay.
No, anyone can, one at a time.
Okay.
Subject to my hammer. Well, that's interesting. Jack put in the chat a link to a website recovery video that is.
Okay, so this is my screen, and if you see the images are loading.
Reset is one of those tools that you simply don't realize.
They're not smooth. Can you see it?
Yes. Now the image, did the image change or did the page change?
The page changed, a different page.
Oh, okay, so I didn't see your cursor there. So
Okay,
there's an image this large on each page, in other words.
okay, this is
A hero image.
Right.
right, and this is my
What about guys just simply having her open the image standalone in a browser tab, and then we can just look at the tab and determine the size?
Yeah.
I'll run a squoosh on it. Give me the
Right.
address and I'll run a squoosh.
No, we can't do the address. Do you know how to display the image in a new tab?
Yeah, you just left.
No, I'm asking Mayura.
yeah.
Okay, do that for us, please. Just right click on the image,
Exactly.
Yeah.
and then where it says open, you know, in a,
New tab, yeah.
Inspect.
I can't see it there, but it's closer to the top.
The first
Top
one,
one.
the top option, open image in new tab. There you
Okay,
go.
let that go. And then when the tab opens,
There we go.
put your cursor right up on the tab label, and it should then display the size of the image, which is, read it off to us.
Yeah.
What is the size?
It's showing it's showing
1536 into 727.
1536 yeah, 727. Yeah.
I think it's 1536 to
36.
727.
Right.
Yeah, 1536 by
And what is it? Is it a JPEG or a PNG or what? Or
JPEG.
JPEG.
Yeah.
Well, it's photographic, so I guess JPEG is the obvious thing. Well, that's not humongous. I mean,
No, it's not that big.
I mean, it could be a quarter or a third lesson size and work fine, but I guess the more important question is whether it's been optimized or not. We don't have a size there, do we?
Yeah, I noticed something odd when the pictures were being displayed, is that they actually display twice. The first time they display in a smaller size, and then they expand to full screen. And every time the screen changes, that happens. I haven't seen that before.
Could you refresh the page or reload the page just to see whether that effect, that's the image. The other tab, the tab with the page on it?
Yeah. I was
Notice
noticing
when
that
you go
too.
to a
It's like
different page,
Yeah,
you go to a
I
new
noticed
page,
that as well.
you see the image twice.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
kind
for a
of-
split second.
it's narrow and then it goes full width, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I wonder if it's something to do with this theme. Mayura, can you tell me what theme you're using?
It's Customify Pro.
I wonder if it could be something dumb like there's no size values set for the image, and so the browser has to figure it out, and to do so takes a split second. I mean, I'm only guessing. But WordPress is the WordPress core that adds image dimensions, right? I mean, that's an automatic process when you upload to the media library.
And
So, sorry,
you're
Drew, what
using-
was the theme?
It's not one I recognize. Customify or something like that?
Yeah, Customify. It's pro version.
Well, there's certainly, I mean, there's one thing that can be done, pick a page, get a copy of the image in question, use an online service to optimize the image, which is to say compress it to an appropriate level, given that you can choose a lot of compression or a little compression and so on, and then replace the image in question with the optimized version and see if that resolves the problem of this sort of hesitancy at the first display moment. And I guess really it's it's exactly as Drew was saying. Normally it would be quite straightforward to sort of check the image and its values, but one can't assume that the theme is just doing a normal, straightforward job of building this hero section.
Can I just make the comment that this particular picture we're looking at is stretched widthwise. Those cement trucks are way longer than they ought to be.
Ah.
You're right. This is stretched. Yeah. She wanted a banner-like image, so I had to stretch it.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. So that may be what's happening. Is because wasn't intended to be a full width image. It's displaying the original size, and then it's stretching.
Stretching.
But what is stretching it? Is it the browser or WordPress or
possibly the theme? Possibly is it? Are you using Elementor to build this site?
Yes, I am.
Okay, it could be Elementor.
Well, you definitely don't want images that are distorted.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like I'm not familiar enough with cement trucks. They look fine to me, but
oh, no, they're not. Look at the original picture. They're not the same. You go to the tab of the original picture of that. It's definitely stretched.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Clever. You've got a good eye.
Okay. So there was more in that picture. So I'm wondering, did you crop it in Photoshop or something like that?
No, I just got the picture and I stretched the sizes to fit in the screen.
Okay.
All right, so you did edit the picture, just stretch it to fit the theme, right?
Yeah, let's not talk in terms of stretching images. I mean, if you resized it, you should just have a larger version of the original image. It doesn't change. And assuming that you don't change the aspect ratio.
Changing the aspect ratio, yeah.
Which is normally set, by default at, preserve or maintain the aspect ratio. You have to sort of uncheck that in order to get one dimension to change without changing the other proportionally, right?
Yeah.
So I would go back and what application did you use to resize the image?
I think it just resized in the WordPress itself.
Okay, well, that's definitely the wrong way to go about it. Do you have a program to use to edit or resize images?
No, I don't have.
Are you a Windows user or a Mac user?
Windows.
Windows. So guys, what's the simplest free image program for Windows?
SQ.
No, not just for optimizing, but just a simple, straightforward image editor.
I just use Paint sometimes too.
Sure, Paint's fine.
Yeah.
Isn't Paint included in the OS?
Paint's probably simplest. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the simplest one.
Or View, yeah.
Right.
Squoosh gives you before and after. Before.
Yes, but Jack, we're not only interested in optimization, right? So what we need is an editor first. Anyway, pick an editor, a free editor. Use Paint because it is included with with Windows. Resize the image to whatever dimensions you want, making sure not to uncheck the box that says aspect ratio,
Okay.
so that whatever size you change, it changes proportionately. And then if you want, I mean, crop it to fit whatever you need. And then look at the size of the image when you're done to see whether it needs to be optimized separately. Optimizing it means increase the compression of the file to make it smaller.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then add it back into the media library with the same name that it had before, and push the button and see what happens.
Yeah, and you could probably sharpen it a little bit in the editing program.
Let's
You
see
probably
if
got
we
a
can
sharpen
get a
control.
new size that isn't, the proportions aren't changed. It maintains the aspect ratio. I think that should come first.
Okay.
Don't you think?
Yeah, but the sharpness was the problem that she was having. So what about the other pictures? Can we see some of the others again? Yeah, okay, so that one's definitely, that picture can't be big enough. There's nothing sharp about that.
Right. Well, let's put it this way. Do we know like that? Well, I guess it's what we're seeing, at least I'm seeing it through Zoom, through the share function, through a browser.
Yeah. Look at those very stretchy cement tracks.
Yeah, so all the images need to be resized at the correct ratio, but then cropped, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you understand what cropping is? Do you know, are you familiar with the term?
Yeah, I understand, Robin.
Okay. In particular, the sky and this foreground is all dead space that if you were doing panoramic images for your vacation would be a great idea. For a business site, it's just dead space that contributes nothing. So you could cut half of the height of this image and at no loss at all of the value of the image. Well, within reason,
Yeah.
Don't take me too literally.
Yeah, but maybe not in the theme. That could be a problem.
I'm sorry, not in?
Maybe not in the particular theme. She may not have that control.
True. If the theme limits it to that extent, then that puts you in a position where you've got to rethink the images you're using. These look like company images though, aren't they? The client has provided images of its own plant and office, I presume. Just, maybe shoot some more images or get the originals.
Yeah.
Anyway, lots of things you can do, but the key is to go through the process in such a way that you don't change the aspect ratio, and that if you want to adjust the images, try first to crop them, or crop one, and see if you can get it to work. Replace the existing image with the new version with the same file name by deleting one and then uploading the other.
Okay.
And that should work straightforwardly.
I'll try that.
Anybody else want to make a comment before we close this one out?
Yeah, I'm having a strange situation here. I'm trying to get to the site and I've entered the address and it won't let me look at any of the pages. I'm there at the site, but the message is this page cannot be displayed. Strange.
I think it's actually quite logical because as I understand it, this is not yet published. This is not a public site.
Oh, okay. So there's privacy associated with it. That's too bad because I could have then sized up all the pictures and seen exactly what, but now I can't do that. Okay.
All right. Who would like to be next, or should I just do the same thing again and pick somebody? Salima, are you there, Salima? Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
You are. I was just going to actually unmute and say I would love to go next. So our site, we are a health and wellness company, and I am, not an expert in WordPress by no means, but I have set up our existing sales pages and our website using Thrive Architect is the tool that we're using. So Thrive Themes and Thrive Theme Builder. One of the issues that we're having is performance. And so we've just launched Woocommerce as our front end. We were using Infusionsoft order forms, but it was just too complicated. There was too many customers were complaining about all the fields that had to be filled out. And so we just wanted to give them very much like a Shopify front end. So I used Woocommerce to build our cart. And I've noticed, though, that the performance is very, very slow. So I don't know if you cover that here, but I did some research and I got rid of most of the plugins that I was familiar with that we're not using. Looked at the images and ran a compression. I think it was Smush tool to compress all the images.
Smush or Smoosh or something.
That's right. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it, but yeah. So I went through all the images. It was about 200 and something images there. And yeah, and it's still pretty slow when I look at Pingdom and Google Insight for performance. On the desktop, it seems to be great, but on the mobile, which is majority of our customers, it's coming up with a very poor rating. So I don't know if there's.
What's the URL for the website?
Yep. So I can. I'll type it into the chat. It's a little bit long.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Sure. So this is our site, and then, sorry, just give me 1 second. Okay, so I'll share the WooCommerce, basically the category page. Keep in mind, we're not sending customers to this page. They're actually on our sales pages. Our buttons are going right into the cart, but we will be using the category at some page. But just to give you an idea, that's our category. And then if you choose the product Shanti, that's our main product there. Are you able to?
Now, just by way of background, has the sort of site's performance changed recently, or has it been like this more or less for an extensive period of time? Merely just identify if at some point things changed. Well, then you go and look to see what happened at that point. But if it's a very incremental, just getting slower and slower and slower, that could just be the load on sort of the load increasing, but still being on an insubstantial base. Can you give us any sort of tips just in terms of what your experience has been?
Yeah, for sure. So we launched our website in 2018, and I would say that it's every now and then, like probably once a year, a couple times a year, that we have this real slowdown, and then we hire somebody off Fiverr and they do some fixes. I don't know what they're fixing, and then it seems to be fine. They put in a bunch of caching plugins and whatnot, and then we run into the same problem again, the following year. So for this particular slowdown, because we've just launched WooCommerce in November, just around Black Friday, right. We noticed that it was slowing down, and it's incrementally getting slower. So yeah, definitely not.
And it's more the mobile, which is the more important one, that's having this. You're experiencing this slowdown. Okay,
exactly,
guys.
Exactly.
Who wants to pick up?
I'll just add one more thing. So we're using SiteGround, and it's on the server end. We have enough memory. I think it's like 256 or something like that.
Yeah.
So I've kind of done a lot of research and check marked. Okay, we've done this. We've got that done, and now we're like, okay, what else could it be?
Just by the by, before we sort of get into the meat of the thing, when you bring in somebody to do things to the site, earlier in this session, the very first fellow actually wanted to know about software to track what goes on in the site. And it would be handy to have a plugin which would run while someone was fixing your site, quote unquote, that would simply log all the steps taken. And then whether they report it or not, you'd know exactly what they did, or at least someone knowledgeable could pick it up and say, this is what they did. That'll only work for 1 year, or that'll only work until this happens or that happens. So it's a way to look into what's going on without the cooperation of the person making the changes.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Okay, so who would like to pick up the ball here?
Really?
I've done a Google page speed insight and a GT metrics on the address that you've supplied in the chat window, and it was darn good. 1.2 seconds.
No, but it's mobile. It's mobile, Jack. It's mobile we care about.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to check now, the mobile side.
Yeah, so real quick, even the mobile, the rating is good, but obviously the actual performance isn't always an indicator of the rating. So I was just looking at the issues identified by Google. So there are a couple of things. The images are statically sized. That means you have given an exact proportion to each image, an exact pixel amount, which means they don't scale with the media queries. So like depending on the screen size, the image has to be, a different image needs to be served. That way you serve smaller images for different sizes. Also, I would suggest using WebP. So WebP is an image format instead of JPEG and PNG, which are called next gen images. So you could, the best way is not to do it via plugin, which often people do, but do an actual conversion. There's online tools to do actual conversions of these files and then re-upload it and assign it to the relevant areas. So if
WebP?
Yep, WebP.
Right. Can we check, somebody check to see on the mobile version that this resizing is occurring as you're suggesting? I don't pay that much attention to this question of image sizes, but doesn't WordPress core itself process the images in the library so that the mobile version gets a reduced size one without the site administrator having to do anything?
Yeah,
or perhaps I've got it wrong, but that's my understanding.
It does resize the image, but it does the actual dimension. So that's one more computation that's being done. So
but as I say, when it goes into the media library, these small other versions are created and served, therefore, as static files.
No,
so the mobile version of, say, a hero image is already small, sitting in the media library, waiting to be called upon. No, anyway, if I've misunderstood the way the thing works, that could easily happen here. It's just not an area I'm familiar with. But it is something to take into account. Could we not inspect the mobile version and see what size the images are that we're looking at?
I share my screen real quick, and that sure. I can show you an audit. And I'm sure everyone's is my screen visible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the two main highlights were the properly sized images. This is specifically for mobile. So you can see, hey, mobile, the performance looks great. Accessibility is great, but the actual performance doesn't seem so good. So 4.2 seconds are being taken up by the images not being sized properly for mobile. And you
That's gigantic.
And you can see that because we have a static 600 pixel or 600 height, which means they're serving the large image and then converting into a smaller image for the different device. So there's one more computation, there's one more step being done by the system, which is slowing down the actual serving.
Well, if you also stop scrolling for just 1 second, if you just go back up another, look at the sizes on the right, with resource size and potential savings of 432. That's for a 600 by 600 image is like gigantically fat, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like I can see you could have that down to 50 without killing yourself at all.
Okay, that's really good feedback.
I've actually seen lately from sites like the New York Times, images in the 600 by 600 range that are 15 to 25 kilobytes and look sharp as a tack. So there's obviously, image compression optimization has a lot to do with what you spend on the tools, right? But even our free tools don't have any trouble at all knocking 70, 80% off the size of an image with no discernible loss in resolution.
Okay.
But I think Prajin's other point, though, of changing the format to WebP, if you Google WebP, just to familiarize yourself with the format and the fact that it's touted as sort of the next great thing, and that WordPress core recently just decided we're not quite ready to incorporate that, but soon, hopefully, they think. That's a good idea. And then if you are resizing images and compressing them, if you use WebP, you'll reduce the size probably by 90%. And that 4 seconds might come down to a quarter of a second.
Okay, that's perfect. So
which is probably a pretty good improvement, but that's not necessarily all. Prajin, do you have more thoughts?
Yeah, I understand you're using caching. You've minified your JS and CSS. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. The only other thing is, and to really improve it, is again the plugins, the bulky plugins, or if you have any custom functions, if you've written any actual PHP, you can use asynchronous functions for your JS. This is in case you've written any code. The way to go is to use asynchronous functions, which means that the functions load simultaneously, or multiple functions can run parallel to each other. That's in case you've coded anything or your developers have. I'd suggest for them to think about using that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you saying also, so to begin with, to take the images that I have and create them,
change the format,
resize them first,
resize them,
and then convert them to WebP?
Right, which you can do, which you may be able to do in one step.
Yes.
And at the online services that offer compression and resizing and so on, a few of them will let you batch them in at 20 at a time, and that makes it reasonably efficient. Mind you, if it's a free service or a free plugin or a free app, it won't do as good a job as the paid version. And if you're making money from, if the speed of your site is affecting how much money you can make or how profitable the site can be as a vehicle, then it's probably worth paying for some of the services we're talking about, because they're small in relation to the value they contribute to the site, right?
Right, no, 100%.
So if you get a 25% increase in sales, that's probably worth a couple $100.
Yeah, no, 100%. That makes a lot of sense. So would I typically need to have that image in 3 different sizes then, as you were saying earlier, Robin?
I would read up. Go to a site like WP Beginner or Kinsta and look for something on image sizing.
Okay.
And it will then explain better than I can, and clearly more accurately, exactly what WordPress does when you upload to the media library. And then it does stuff in the background, doesn't tell you anything about it, just does its job. And so if it is as I understand, well, then that's part of your answer right there. I'm not familiar with anybody making 3 or 4 different sizes of an image to incorporate to reflect different uses, mobile, tablet, desktop, and so on. Thrive, those tools will have the option of specifically selecting images for the mobile version versus the desktop version. I mean, any sophisticated page builder will give you choices like that, but you just have to remember, you got to be looking at the mobile version and displaying its settings separately from whatever the main display tends to be. And then just as a very last point, as something to sort of put in the back of your mind,
as a future consideration is that one of the ways that people speed up sites dramatically is by automatically generating a static version of the site in which there are no calls to a database, limited JavaScript running or available. And so the pages are sort of blindingly speedy. They sometimes also refer to this as headless WordPress, in which the function of creating the static version of the site is handled in such a way that it doesn't matter sort of what you're doing. It creates this version of the site just to expedite the delivery of pages or whatever to the user. But that's a kind of a serious proposition, but it is one that produces performance gains that are undeniable. But it's not for sort of the faint-hearted or the novices amongst us to do. But it's just something, keep in the back of your mind that there are some real performance techniques, but that they take more effort and skill and probably money. But that's sort of like everything, right? I mean, if you want a blindingly fast site, well, you have to, spend the time or money to do it. But your image route, just from what we saw of, almost 500 kilobyte, almost a half a megabyte per image, get that down to 25 to 50, and that may be all you need.
And Squoosh will do it for it.
Also, the SiteGround optimizer plugin that would have been installed on your site by SiteGround has an image optimization feature in it.
Excellent. And Prajin also mentions, don't forget content delivery networks. Do you happen to know if your site is using Cloudflare?
Yes, they are. Yes, it is.
Yeah, so that's one level of caching that's pretty cool. Then you've got the caching plugin from SiteGround itself, and SiteGround is highly regarded, amongst hosts. It's certainly got a great, at least a good reputation, maybe not a great one, but I think it was host of the year a couple of times in the last 4 or 5 years. So you're on good, you're safe there. And just by the by, they do have depending on your plan, a built-in staging capability that normally works with just clicking a button.
Yeah, I think we have that as well for any
so that's
development type.
That's handy because you can then, with a staging site, just do whatever you want to tweak its performance. And if it blows up or it doesn't work or whatever, just toss that copy and make a new one.
Right.
So that's the beauty of it. It's just that there's no risk.
Yeah.
Other than your time.
Okay.
All right, guys.
That's very helpful. Can I ask one last question? I don't know if this is the right.
No, go ahead.
I don't know if this is even allowed or not, but I also signed up for this because I wanted to know if there's anyone who's familiar with WooCommerce and development in WooCommerce, because we are looking at outsourcing and we often go to Fiverr, and I thought if this is like a local group that we have here, if there are any developers that are potentially looking for some extra work.
If any of the people who are attending tonight wish to do so, why don't you put your email address in the chat window? Prajin, are you a candidate here?
I'm in Toronto. Yeah, so I run a media agency and I got 15 developers under me. So I'd love to help if it makes sense.
So why don't you put your email address in?
Sure thing.
For sure. And anybody else, feel free, because if we were meeting live or in person, as we used to say, this would be so easy to do, right? But you've been very helpful, Prajin. So I
no worries.
So your site is Greyline Media.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll look at it. It'll be fun.
Thanks. No,
Okay,
it's nice to be part of this group.
Yeah. Hopefully you'll come back, and because it's we're never going to have enough talent, and we're, I suppose, weakest on developer chops, relatively speaking. Content and SEO and site design and so on. We've got, we're well represented too, I would say. So we have time for one more, I was going to say victim, but that would be cruel. How about Michelle? Are you there, Michelle? If you'd like to unmute yourself.
Yeah, Thank you.
So you up to it? You want to flame the brick?
I'm
What a festive background you have.
Thank you. I'm just going to put my site in chat.
Sure.
And I am I'm in Toastmasters. I inherited this. I've been trying to fix things for 6 months, but it's not my full-time job, of course, and it's so my first question, it deals with the header.
Right.
Where is this file kept? I just fixed it, but I hate it. So this site has SEO issues. It's got imaging issues, and I used to have probably triple the number of pages, and I've gotten rid of all the dead pages, but it's so at this point I'm just trying to do one page at a time. So the first page, the home page, where do the header files get kept, and can I edit this in a different way than Divi? Like,
so this is a Divi theme?
Yes.
Okay. Who would like to start off? Prajin, you're on. Why don't we inspect this page?
Yeah, so I was
and
just
see what it's got to say for itself.
All right. I mean, there are a couple of things. So
let's first just mention what we're doing when we inspect a page.
Okay.
Built into modern browsers like Chrome and Firefox is the inspect tool right at the bottom there, which that's just one of 3 ways to get to it, but it's a good way. Yeah. And you can either have it to appear in the bottom or on the side. And what it does is enables you, like using a sort of a stethoscope or a microscope, to sort of look into the site to see what's going on by hovering over an area of the site, and it'll highlight that area at the code level in the bottom window. So you're picking the header first, I guess, right?
Yep. So I was just looking at the container width. So this is a CSS fix that you can make where it's defining the max width as 1,000 pixels. So if we just remove that from the CSS, you're going to have your header fixed straight away to have like a full width header. The same issue is with kind of the container. So I understand you're using Divi though. And so Divi does these CSS and HTML changes for you. To really
they say it implements them for you.
Absolutely.
You still have to figure out the change.
What we need to really do, I've not extensively worked on Divi, but it's the same thing. Basically, we need to let Divi know that the max width should be 100%. So instead of 100 pixel, if you have 100%,
okay,
it means that you'll have a full width header. I think that was one of the small issues.
Yeah.
Similarly with the container, it's being told to stay in a particular, we're telling it to stay only in this amount of space. And
Right, why don't you highlight the container you're talking about?
Yeah.
Just so that people who are not that familiar with the tool.
So
the blue area is now what you can see the values for when he moves the mouse over to the bottom window right side.
Right?
Okay. Now, the changes that he's making here are only going to affect the display of the page right now. The page itself is still unchanged, at the level of the site itself, right? In other words, these are just temporary changes to view the effect of a change in real time.
Yeah.
So I don't think this exactly answers your question, but the concept is that we can just change the width of these two and that'll solve all your issues. So we just need to identify where in Divi can you just change the max width. So let me just do a quick Google and I can send you a link for that.
That I think that's easy to do. There's a width, a max width, and default width.
So you already know where those settings are?
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. So
well, I mean, maybe if you could get to them quickly, and you could share your screen and show us the settings, and then Prajin can double check that what he has in mind will work as he thinks it will.
Okay.
And we can actually do the fix live.
Yeah.
Generally considered hazardous to your well-being, but if it's just changing the width of something, that's fairly easy to recover from.
And I think everybody's used to me just changing something.
Right. So now have you gotten to the page?
It's still just trying to
Sure, go ahead. We're not in a rush.
Okay. And okay.
And then you're going to look for the green button at the bottom of the Zoom window where it says share screen.
Yeah.
Click on that.
Yeah. And so you can see my screen.
Now what we want to do is we want to see the editing view of the page. Right?
Okay. Let's see if it's, let me look at spacing. Okay. No. And this is my other issue.
Perhaps we could just X out of that helper box.
Yeah.
Just get rid of it.
Sorry.
No problem.
My actual role is public relations. I just do this on the side. My professional background, it's in databases and business analysis. Okay, so which is why I think they saddled me with this. And that's the wrong one. Sorry, I keep.
No problem. Take your time. Prajin, jump in here whenever you want.
Tell me which container.
Let's click on the blue container, the one out. Yeah. And let's go into the settings for that.
Okay, so
Design.
let's close that.
Sizing. Let's go to sizing. And if there's 100%, so let's go to 100%. 100% max width 100%. And let's just see what happens once we do that.
Okay.
Let's press green. Okay, so that is not centerized. So now if we press the, so we know now that that's full width. Now with this container, we need to just centerize it in between. So let's click on that.
So that's the green.
Yep.
Okay, so we've got to size it.
Sizing.
Yeah.
Yep, 100%, and the one below as well, 100%. And now it should be centerized. Nope. Okay, let's go back to the settings.
I think sort of went the opposite direction there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there was a, there has to be a value.
Maybe she missed a digit.
Let's see, settings.
I'll do it slowly.
No worries.
Sizing.
So it's 100, 100, and
okay. Okay, I see what's happening. That's because there are a couple of rows. So we have
this row and this row.
Yep. There's one.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just looking at the container one, container two, and we have that over there. Is there another container where the image is, or are those two separate columns?
That's a separate column.
It's a separate column, and that doesn't live inside the row on top. No.
No.
No. So.
No.
Okay. So we have to. I'm going to ask you to open this settings one more time. Sorry.
For the green, right?
Yeah. Yes, please. Okay, and let's just go back to design so we know the column structure, sizing. And this one, yeah, and minimum height is 224, height 224, max height 224. All right, the row alignment is fine, I think.
It's the first one.
Yeah. Is there a reason there are 3 rows? 3 columns?
No.
Equalize column height, use custom gutter settings. So not 100 pixel, that needs to be percent. 100%.
Max width is extremely low here.
Yeah, now it should. I think that fixed it.
Let's see. Yeah.
There you go.
I think it wasn't doing percent.
Yeah.
The max. Okay. Now, with that part fixed, when it switches to mobile and whatever, the tablet, it should just adjust automatically now because it's 100. Okay. And the slider part, I could do the same thing with that then. Okay. Then I'll do that and Okay. That just stretched it out.
Yeah, might not make sense for this particular section. Let's go back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think specifically for this section, it kind of makes sense because it's a smaller section that it doesn't actually need to take the full container.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to find users whose displays are the width that you're showing here, right? I mean, if this were the normal view of the site, then you wouldn't want full width. I mean, it doesn't work, right? It's only because you're working on the site now and that it's convenient to have it super wide. So I think Prajin's point's well taken that the slider, given at least the size of the image and the size of text and so on, that's in proportion to sort of what the thing is doing. I do find the text size quite small on the page, but then it's hard to see what it would be on, a browser size display size that I'm more familiar with. But it does seem small.
Let me switch. I just switched to this font size this week because I thought other pages are much larger, but I thought maybe the font size was too large.
Well, you could be right. I mean, don't take what I'm suggesting. I have not studied it at all. I'm just giving you our sort of impression as much as anything else. Okay.
Good. I'll work with that then, and I'll try and adjust all of the other pages, and then next month come back with new questions.
Now, I just might mention that Jack, if he's still here, can speak for himself. Jack, did you want to comment on the performance question?
Yeah, just as in the previous website, this website has a pretty good desktop, 1.2 seconds on a couple of tests, but the mobile performance is pretty low or pretty poor. It's 8 and 9 seconds respectively. And if you have a lot of mobile users, they will not be happy campers.
Yep.
It depends on where your people are coming in from.
And whether or not you want them to be repeat visitors.
It's a mixture, and I do want them to be repeat visitors.
Right. I'm sort of being a bit sarcastic there.
And
we all want repeat visitors, I think.
We're not selling anything, but it's a reference site.
Sure.
So we need people to check for information, forms, that kind of thing through here. Okay.
I don't know if Toastmasters still does this or not, but Toastmasters International used to run a WordPress multi-site, and they provided websites to all of the individual chapters and clubs. Now I notice that this is a district rather than a chapter. So I don't know whether they have sites for that as well.
They suggest themes, and supposedly we were using the theme, except we're now using Divi. So it's supposed to be 22 or 23, which I still have those two themes on my site. It's just not being used. Yeah, maybe I'll check them out too.
Okay,
Okay, thank you. I'll start the share.
great. Okay, folks, we've reached our end of our allotted time. And I think I don't think anybody has wanted to speak and not had an opportunity. So thank you all for coming. And since we often have new people, it's great to have new people and more talent. And we hope that you've enjoyed yourself and will return again. And to all, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever,
Thank you.
whatever is
so much.
politically
Have a
appropriate
great
these
night.
days.
Happy holidays. Thank you.
I hope everyone is well and enjoys the holidays.
Right.
Ciao. Bye.
Happy holidays.
We see you all in January.
Happy Christmas.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Bye now.